that, y'all. There we go. Oh, we've got greetings, Stuart. Greetings, a softer place to land, Martin. Oh, hi everybody. Welcome to Begrudging Book Club. Let's get everything going. I hope we've all had a happy hump day. We've made it. I don't know about you, but it's been a struggle. It's been so hot, too. The heat has been taking it out. Alright. So, it says there's 7 people in here. I only see 4 names, and then one's me. So, we'll figure it out. I'm definitely going to pull these 4 cards. You 3 mystery people, make yourselves known if you want your card, because I don't know who you are. So, Stuart, you've got boundaries. The delay is the decision. Listen for the echo. Which, this is one of my, I always say favorites, but I feel like this is one of the ones where it is a good piece of advice. I don't know. Because anytime you have one of those hard decisions, or even an easy decision, sometimes it's in that pause. Like, maybe the pause is the no. Maybe the pause is the break for the universe or the sky to tell you what's going on. But listen for the echo. Next up, a softer place to land. You've got boundaries. Protect your peace like state secrets. Classified, you. Martin, who is going to be my co-conspirator for tomorrow. We're doing self-help orientation and QVC. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to tour the Empire, just in case some of you citizens aren't aware of how sprawling it is, and then also show off the things that we do have besides like the begrudgingly grateful cards in our bazaar. Okay, Martin, you're next. You've got hydrate. Toast your own survival. Repeat until sincerity threatens. I feel like that's a lot of what we do. Just repeat until sincerity threatens, and then the next thing you know, we're here. And then last up, are you a Rebecca, or are you just a Rebecca? Ooh, you've got a good one. You've got soothe. Draw the bath, not conclusions. Let steam argue for you. I thought you were a Rebecca, but I mean, I don't know. Brain fart. Okay, so that's all of the citizens I know for sure that I can see. Yes, it's moonlighting as a hydrate card. Hydrate your skin. Put some oatmeal in that bath. And, oh yeah, new thing. I'm supposed to be pulling my own cards. Oh, I'm like dropping them. It wasn't just one, so it's not going to count. Oh, there you are, Wendy. So my card is reframe. Failure has range. Let it audition. And I mean, I'm not afraid to let failure show up. Because sometimes in the midst of failure, there's little gems in the ruins. Or I guess not gems. But you're not here for my metaphors. We're here for Bitch Boy. Greetings, Wendy. Your card. Hydrate. Pretend you're photosynthesizing sarcasm. Sunlight optional. But you know what? I'm going to take it back and say the sunlight is not optional for you. It's gorgeous where you are. And I know you've been getting some real great inspiration out in your Kiwi wilderness. So get some sun. Tara! Okay, you're one of my mystery lurkers. There you are. Let's get you your card. You've got move. Dance badly. Worship efficiently. Summon endorphins out of spite. That's right up your alley. I feel like, you know, give it a little go. And I mean, I saw something about, well, I guess, was it just your husband doing all the stuff in the yard, or were you helping him? Alright. Let's get to it. I was looking to see what we've got left, and we're getting close. Oh, your moral support. Nothing wrong with that. So I think there were a couple. I feel like one was a death and resurrection one. One was a fear and obsession one. That weren't like too. Yeah, I think it was the assignation. This one. Tales of Murder. And then. Oh, greetings, Lydia. Let's get you your card. Oh, maybe you were one of the lurkers. You've got soothe. Rest before the narrative demands it. Permission granted, none requested. Oh, and it looks like you're putting some Z's in there. So, like I said, these cards know what's up. Yeah, so I think the assignation was one. And what was the other one I was thinking of? Well, it doesn't matter. We'll start with the assignation. Page 138. Oh no, it's not going to let you see the page quite as well. It's probably my hands. Oh yes, there's meteor showers. There was like a solar eclipse earlier today as well. The sky is doing things. And if you believe in all the things about the sky, knowing things when it does things, then it's a little busy right now. All right. The assignation. Ooh, we have a preface, not in Latin or some weird. Wow, I think it's just going to immediately start with the technical difficulties. Alright, so let me bookmark this, and then we'll get this camera situation figured out. Will you stay there? Okay. I think we're back in business. Oh! Hey, Sarah. Let's get you your card. I think you've gotten this one before. Boundaries. Decline gracefully like a falling chandelier. Sparkle anyway. Rabbit entrails? Ooh. Okay. There's some icky stuff going on in the chat. I guess I'll figure that out later. The assignation. Stay for me there. I will not fail to meet thee in that hollow vale. Henry King, Bishop of Chichester, exque on the death of his wife. Ill-fated and mysterious man, bewildered in the brilliancy of thine own imagination, and fallen in the flames of thine own youth. Again, in fancy, I behold thee. Once more thy form hath risen before me. Not. Oh, not as thou art in the cold valley and shadow, but as thou shouldst be. Squandering away a life of magnificent meditation in that city of dim visions, thine own Venice, which is a star-beloved Elysium of the sea, and the wide windows of whose Palladian palaces look down with a deep and bitter meaning upon the secrets of her silent waters. Yes, I repeat it, as thou shouldest be. There are surely other words than this, other thoughts than the thoughts of the multitude, other speculations than the speculations of the sophist. Who, then, shall call thy conduct into question? Who blame thee for thy visionary hours, or denounce those occupations as a wasting away of life, which were but the overflowing of thine everlasting energies? It was at Venice, beneath the covered archway, there called a Ponte di Sospiri, that I met for the third or fourth time the person of whom I speak. It is with a confused recollection I bring to mind the circumstances of that meeting. Yet I remember. How could I forget? The deep midnight, the bridge of sighs, the beauty of woman, and the genius of romance that stalked up and down the narrow canal. Oh, greetings, Zombie. We're just getting started on the assignation. And it looks like I could probably do that a little bit. Let's get you your card. Ooh. Boundaries. Ghosting is energy conservation. Haunt gracefully. And you've been around enough to know that this is not asshole ghosting we're talking about. But I mean, sometimes. Never mind. Conserve your energy. Haunt gracefully. Back to... I'm not really sure where we are yet. What kind of person this is. I don't think he's writing this from his jail cell. Could this be like... Well, anyways. Definitely, for sure, Venice. That's about as much as I've got. Yes, Tara, ghost gracefully. Oh my gosh, yes, actually, since it got brought up, I wanted to highlight Bridge of Sighs because I felt it. There was something in that. The Bridge of Sighs. Maybe if I ever get around to making a map of Self-Hell, there will be a Bridge of Sighs. For sure. Alright. Deep midnight, the Bridge of Sighs, the beauty of woman, and the genius of romance that stalked up and down the narrow canal. It was a night of unusual gloom. The great clock of the piazza had sounded the 5th hour of the Italian evening. The square of the Campanile lay silent and deserted, and the lights in the old ducal place were drying fast away. I was returning home, mouth of the canal San Marco. A female voice from its recesses broke suddenly upon the night, in one wild, hysterical, and long-continued shriek. Ooh, right to it. Startled at the sound, I sprang up on my feet, while the gondolier, letting slip his single oar, lost it in the pitchy darkness beyond a chance of recovery. Oh, we're getting to it, all right. And we were consequently left to the guidance of the current, which here sets from the greater into the smaller channel. Like some huge and sable-feathered condor, we were slowly drifting down toward the Bridge of Sighs, when 1,000 flambeaux flashing from the windows and down the staircases of the ducal place turned all at once that deep gloom into a livid and preternatural day. Wait! Never mind. It's the reverse. I'm sorry. A child, slipping from the arms of its own mother, had fallen from an upper window of the lofty structure into the deep and dim canal. The quiet waters had closed placidly over their victim, and although mine own gondola was the only one in night, many a stout swimmer already in the stream was seeking in vain upon the surface the treasure which was to be found, alas, only within the abyss. Okay. Upon the broad black marble flagstones at the entrance of the palace, and a few steps above the water, stood a figure which none who then saw can have ever since forgotten. It was the Marchesa Aphrodite, the adoration of all Venice. Ah, where's Brandon? The gayest of the gay, the most lovely, where all were beautiful. But still, the young wife of the old and intriguing Mentoni, and the mother of that fair child, her first and only one, who now, deep beneath the murky water, was thinking in bitterness of the heart upon her sweet caress, and exhausting in its little life struggles to call upon her name. Oh, greetings, Dozer Jack. Welcome to Begrudging Book Club. Ooh, your card. You've got Chaos Mitigation, Flirt with Escape, Irish Exit, Global Peace. She stood alone. Her small, bare, and silvery feet gleamed in the black mirror of marble beneath her. Her hair, not as yet more than half loosened for the night from its half-room array, clustered amid a shower of diamonds, round and round her classical head, in curls like those of the young hyacinth. A snowy white and gauze-like drapery seemed to be nearly the sole covering to her delicate form. But the midsummer and midnight air was hot, sullen, and still, and no motion and the statue-like form itself stirred even the folds of that raiment of very vapor which hung around it as heavy as marble hangs around the Niobe. Niobe? Yet, strange to say, her large, lustrous eyes were not turned downwards upon that grave wherein her brightest hope lay buried, but riveted in a wildly different direction. The prison of the old Republic is, I think, the stateliest building in all Venice. But how could that lady gaze so fixedly upon it when beneath her lay, stifling her only child? Yon dark, gloomy niche, too, yawns right opposite her chamber window. What, then, could there be in its shadows, in its architecture, in its ivy-wreathed and solemn cornices, that the Marchesa de Mentoni had not wondered at 1,000 times before? Nonsense! Who does not remember that at such a time as this, the eye, like a shattered mirror, multiplies the images of its sorrow, and sees in innumerable and far-off places the woe which is close at hand. Ooh, greetings, Jeff. Welcome to Book Club. We're starting off in Venice. We've got a drowning child in the canal. Let's see where it goes. Ooh, your card. Reframe. Curating pain is not the same as releasing it. Catalog later. Feel now. Yes, some of those sentences, Tara, the large, lustrous eyes, and big fan of like the alliteration and assonance and many steps above the Marchesa, and within the arch of the Watergate, stood in full dress the satyr-like figure of Mentoni himself. He was occasionally occupied in thrumming a guitar, and seemed ennuyé to the very death, as at intervals he gave directions for the recovery of his child. Stupefied and aghast, I had myself no power to move from the upright position I had assumed upon first hearing the shriek, and must have presented to the eyes of the agitated group a spectral and ominous appearance, as with pale countenance and rigid limbs, I floated down among them in that funereal gondola. Oh yeah, and he lost one of his oars to the gondola. So he's gonna like watch this death and float past. I wonder if we're gonna have like some River Hades symbolism going on here. Meat sack. Nice. Welcome to Book Club. You've got move. Bow to no one, but maybe to balance. Curtain call optional. All efforts proved in vain. Many of the most energetic in the search were relaxing their exertions and yielding to a gloomy sorrow. There seemed to be but little hope for the child. How much less than for the mother. But now, from the interior of that dark niche, which has already been mentioned as the forming part of the old Republican prison, and as the fronting the lattice of the Marchesa, a figure muffled in a cloak stepped out within reach of the light, and, pausing a moment upon the verge of the giddy descent, plunged. I was gonna say, oh no, this is someone else, but I'm not gonna be surprised if this mom throws herself. Okay, so a random figure in a cloak plunged itself headlong into the canal, as in an instant afterwards, He stood with the still living and breathing child within his grasp upon the marble flagstones by the side of the Marchesa. His cloak, heavy with the drenching water, became unfastened, and falling in folds about his feet, discovered to the wonder-stricken spectators the graceful person of a very young man, who, with the sound of whose name the greater part of Europe was then ringing. No word spoke the deliverer, but the Marchesa. She will now receive her child. She will press it to her heart, and she will cling to its little form and smother it with her caress. Alas, another's arms have taken it from the stranger. Another's arms have taken it away and borne it far off, unnoticed, into the palace. And the Marchesa, her beautiful lip trembles. Tears are gathering in her eyes. Those eyes, which, like Pliny's acanthus, are soft and almost liquid. Yes, tears are gathering in those eyes. And see, the entire woman thrills throughout the soul, and the statue has started into the life. The pallor of the marble countenance, the swelling of the marble bosom, the very purity of the marble feet, we behold suddenly flushed over with a tide of ungovernable crimson, and a slight shudder quivers about her delicate frame, as a gentle air at Napoli about the rich silver lilies in the grass. Why should that lady blush? To this demand there is no answer, except that, having left in the eager haste and terror of a mother's heart the privacy of her own boudoir, she has neglected to enthrall her tiny feet in their slippers, and utterly forgotten to throw over her Venetian shoulders that drapery which is their due. What other possible reason could there have been for her so blushing? For the glance of those wild, appealing eyes? For the unusual tumult of that throbbing bosom? For the convulsive pressure of that trembling hand? That hand which fell, as Montoni turned into the palace, accidentally upon the hand of the stranger. What reason could there have been for the singularly low tone of those unmeaning words which the lady uttered hurriedly in bidding him adieu? "Thou hast conquered," she said, or murmurs of the water deceived me. "Thou hast conquered. 1 hour after sunrise, we shall meet, so let it be." Secret rendezvous. I don't know. We've got some interesting things going on here today. The tumult had subsided. The lights had died away within the palace, and the stranger, whom I now recognized, stood alone upon the flags. He shook with inconceivable agitation, and his eye glanced around in search of a gondola. I could not do less than offer him the service of my own, and he accepted the civility, having obtained an oar at the... Okay, I was about to say, how civil is it that, you're about to invite some dude on your gondola that you lost your oar to? But he's going to bring an oar. We're good. We proceeded together to his residence, while he rapidly recovered his self-possession, and spoke of our former slight acquaintance in terms of great apparent cordiality. There are some subjects upon which I take pleasure in being minute. Ruh-roh. The person of the stranger, let me call him by this title, who to all the world was still a stranger, The person of the stranger is one of those subjects. In height, he might have been below rather than above medium size, although there were moments of intense passion when his frame actually expanded and belied the assertion. The light, almost slender symmetry of his figure promised more of that ready activity which he evinced at the Bridge of Sighs than that of Herculean strength, which he has been known to wield without an effort, upon occasions of more dangerous emergency. With the mouth and chin of a deity. Okay. Singular, wild, and full liquid eyes, whose shadows varied from pure hazel to intense and brilliant jet, and a profusion of curling black hair from which a forehead of unusual breadth gleamed forth at intervals, all light and ivory. His were features than which I have seen none more classically regular, except perhaps the marble ones of the Emperor Commodus. Yet his countenance was, nevertheless, of those which all men have seen at some period of their lives, and have never afterwards seen again. It had no settled predominant expression to be fastened upon the memory, a countenance seen and instantly forgotten, but forgotten with a vague and never-ceasing desire of recalling it to mind. Not that the spirit of each rapid passion failed. At any time to throw its own distinct image upon the mirror of that face, but that the mirror-like, retained no vestige of the passion when the passion had departed. Upon leaving him on the night of our adventure, he solicited me, in what I thought an urgent manner, to call upon him very early the next morning. Shortly after sunrise, I found myself accordingly at his palazzo, one of those huge structures of gloomy yet fantastic pomp, which tower above the waters of the Grand Canal in the vicinity of the Rialto. I was shown up a broad, winding staircase of mosaics into an apartment whose unparalleled splendor burst through the opening door with an actual glare, making me blind and dizzy with luxuriousness. I knew my acquaintance to be wealthy. Report had spoken of his possessions in terms which I had even ventured to call terms of ridiculous exaggeration. But as I gazed about me, I could not bring myself to believe that the wealth of any subject in Europe could have supplied the princely magnificence which burned and blazed around. Although, as I say, the sun had arisen, yet the room was still brilliantly lightened up. I judged from this circumstance, as well as from an air of exhaustion in the countenance of my friend, that he had not retired to bed during the whole of the preceding night. In the architecture and embellishments of the chamber, the evident design that had been to dazzle and astound, little attention had been paid to the decora of what is technically called keeping, or to the properties of nationality. The eye wandered from object to object and rested upon none, neither the grotesques of the Greek painters, nor the sculptures of the best Italian days, nor the huge carvings of untutored Egypt. Rich draperies in every part of the room trembled to the vibration of low, melancholy music, whose origin was not to be discovered. The senses were oppressed by mingled and conflicting perfumes, reeking up from the strange, convolute censers, together with multitudinous flaring and flickering tongues of emerald and violet fire. The rays of the newly risen sun poured into the hole through windows, formed each at a single pane of crimson-tinted glass, glancing to and fro in 1,000 reflections from curtains which rolled from their cornices like cataracts of molten silver. The beams of natural glory mingled at length fitfully with the artificial light, and lay weltering in subdued messes upon a carpet of rich, liquid-looking cloth of chilly gold. Very extravagant. Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha! Laughed the proprietor, motioning to me a seat as I entered the room, and throwing himself back at full length upon an ottoman. I see, said he, perceiving that I could not immediately reconcile myself to the bienséance. That's not too... Propriety, decorum, okay. To the decorum of so singular a welcome. I see you are astonished at my apartment, at my statues, my pictures, my originality of conception and architecture and upholstery, absolutely drunk, with my magnificence. But pardon me, my dear sir. Here, his tone of voice appeared so Here his tone of voice dropped to the very spirit of cordiality. Pardon me for my uncharitable laughter. You appeared so utterly astonished. Besides, some things are so completely ludicrous that a man must laugh or die. To die laughing must be the most glorious of all glorious deaths. Sir Thomas More, a very fine man was Sir Thomas More. Sir Thomas More died laughing, you remember? Also, in the absurdities of Ravisius Textor, there is a long list of characters who came to the same magnificent end. Do you know, however, continued he musingly, that at Sparta, which is now Palais O'Cory, at Sparta, I say, to the west of the citadel, among a chaos of scarcely visible ruins, is a kind of sokol. Plain block, a plinth. So there's a kind of sokol, upon which are still legible the letters LASM. They are undoubtedly part of Galasma. Now, at Sparta were 1,000 temples and shrines to 1,000 different divinities. How exceedingly strange that the altar of laughter should have survived all the others. Oh, you concur with that, Death Tarot? Who knows? He loves some foreshadowing. Maybe we'll see one ourselves. But in the present instance, he resumed, with a singular alteration of his voice and manner, I have no right to be merry at your expense. You might well have been amazed. Europe cannot produce anything so fine as this. My little regal cabinet. My other apartments are by no means of the same order. Mere ultras of fashionable insipidity. Insipidity. Yes, insipid. Moving on. This is better than fashion, is it not? Yet, this has but to be seen to become the rage. That is, those who could afford it at the cost of their entire patrimony. I have guarded, however, against any such profanation, with one exception. You are the only human being besides myself and my valet who has been admitted within the mysteries of these imperial precincts since they have been bedizened, as you see. I bowed in acknowledgement, for the overpowering sense of splendor and perfume and music, together with the unexpected eccentricity of his address and manner, prevented me from expressing in words my appreciation of what I might have constructed into a compliment. Here, he resumed, arising and leaning on my arm as he sauntered around the apartment. Here are paintings from the Greeks to Cimabue, and from the Cimabue to the present hour. Many are chosen, as you see, with little deference to the opinions of virtue. They are all, however, fitting tapestry for a chamber such as this. Here, too, are some chefs d'oeuvre, masterpieces of the unknown great. And here, unfinished designs by men, celebrated in their day, whose very names the perspicacity of the academics have left silence to me. What think you, said he, turning abruptly as he spoke. What think you of this Madonna della Pieta? It is Guido's own, I said, with all the enthusiasm of my nature, for I had been poring intently over its surpassing loveliness. It is Guido's own. How could you have obtained it? She is undoubtedly in painting what the Venus is in sculpture. Ha! Said he thoughtfully. The Venus? The beautiful Venus? The Venus of the Medici? She of the diminutive head and the gilded hair? Part of the left arm. Here, his voice dropped so as to be heard with difficulty. And all the right are restorations. And in the coquetry of Apollo, too, is a copy. There can be no doubt of it. Blind fool that I am, who cannot behold the boasted inspiration of the Apollo? I cannot help, pity me, I cannot help preferring the Antinous. Was it not Socrates who said that the statuary found his statue in the block of marble? Then Michelangelo was by no means original in his couplet. Here we go. Non ba l'amato arista alcun concetto, c'è un marmo solo in se non circunscriva. Something about an artist and a song alone in his, well, we'll see. Not even the greatest sculptor can conceive an idea that a block of marble does not already contain. I like that. It's true. All right. It has been, or should it be remarked that, in the manner of the true gentleman, we are always aware of a difference from the bearing of the vulgar, without being at once precisely able to determine in what such difference consists. Allowing the remark to have applied in its full force to the outward demeanor of my acquaintance, I felt it, on that eventful morning, still more fully applicable to his moral temperament and character. Nor can I better define that peculiarity of spirit which seemed to place him so essentially apart from all other human beings, than by calling it a habit of intense and continual thought, pervading even his most trivial actions, intruding upon his moments of dalliance, and interweaving itself with his very flashes of merriment, like adders which writhe out from the eyes of the grinning masks in the cornices around the temples of Persepolis. I cannot help, however, repeatedly observing, through the mingled tone and levity of solemnity, mingled tone of levity and solemnity, with which he rapidly decanted upon the matters of little importance, a certain air of trepidation, a degree of nervous unction, in which action and in speech, an unquiet excitability of manner which appeared to me at all times unaccountable, and upon some occasions even filled me with alarm. Frequently, too, pausing in the middle of a sentence whose commencement he had already forgotten, he seemed to be listening in the deepest attention, as if either in momentary expectation of a visitor, or to sounds. Wait, this is why I have my hat. I'm sorry, guys. Like, these lights have been messing with me and making it, like, really hard for me to read. And remember, for the last 2 weeks I've been wearing my hat? This is why. Like, I'm sorry. I was, like, really struggling. My head was hurting. But we're good now. Oh my gosh, we're so good now. Great. Okay. Unction, unquiet, excitability, pausing in the middle of a sentence. He seemed to be listening in the deepest attention, as if either in momentary expectation of a visitor, or to sounds which must have had existence in his imagination alone. It was during one of these reveries, or pauses of apparent abstraction, that in the turning of the page of a poet, and scholar Politian's beautiful tragedy, the Orfeo, the first native Italian tragedy, which lay near me upon the ottoman, I discovered a passage underlined in pencil. It was a passage toward the end of the third act, a passage of the most heart-stirring excitement, a passage which, although tainted with impurity, no man shall read without a thrill of novel emotion. Ooh, what am I about to read? No woman without a sigh. The whole page was blotted with fresh tears, and upon the opposite interleaf there were the following English lines, written in a hand so very different from the peculiar characters of my acquaintance, that I had some difficulty in recognizing it as his own. Thou wast that all to me, love, for which my soul did pine, a green isle in the sea, love, a fountain and a shrine, all wreathed with fairy fruits and flowers, and all the flowers were mine. Ah, dream too bright to last. Ah, starry hope, thou didst arise, but to be overcast. A voice out the future cries, onward, but o'er the past. Dim gulf, my spirit hovering lies, mute, motionless, aghast. For alas, alas with me, the light of life is o'er. No more, no more, no more. Such language holds the solemn sea to the sands upon the shore. Shall bloom upon the thunder-blasted tree, or the stricken eagle soar. Now all my hours are trances, and all my mighty dreams are where the dark eye gleams, and where thy footstep gleams. In what eternal dances, by what Italian streams? Alas, for that accursed time, they bore thee o'er the billow, from love to tilted age and crime, and an unholy pillow. Okay. From me, and from our misty clime, where weeps the silver willow. These lines were written in English, a language with which I had not believed their author acquainted, afforded me a little matter for surprise. I was too well aware of the extent of his acquirements and the singular pleasure he took in concealing them from observation to be astonished at any similar discovery. But the place of date, I must confess, occasioned me no little amazement. It had been originally written London, and afterwards carefully overscored. Not, however, so effectually as to conceal the word from a scrutinizing eye. I say, this occasioned me no little amazement, for I well remember that, in a former conversation with a friend, I particularly inquired if he had at any time met in London the Marchesa de Matoni, who for some years previous her marriage had resided in that city. When his answer, if I mistake not, gave me to understand that he had never visited the metropolis of Great Britain, I might as, without, of course, giving credit to a report involving so many improbabilities, that the person with whom I speak was not only by birth, but in education, an Englishman. There's one painting, said he, without being aware of my notice of the tragedy. There is still one painting which you have not seen. And, throwing aside a drapery, he discovered a full-length portrait of the Marchesa Aphrodite. Human art could have done no more in the delineation of her superhuman beauty. The same ethereal figure which stood before me, pretending the night upon the steps of the ducal palace, stood before me once again, but in the expression of the countenance, which was beaming all over with smiles. Still there lurked, incomprehensible anomaly, that the fitful stain of melancholy which will ever be found inseparable from the perfection of the beautiful. Her right arm, the fitful stain of melancholy, which will never be found inseparable from the perfection of the beautiful. We're keeping that. Sorry, I had to think about it for a minute. That's the thing, sometimes, because I'm reading to you guys, I'm just reading the words, and I don't always, take in the words. But that one, I had to read it again. And, of course, there we go. Oh, it's not good at all. Oh, well. Here we are. Is everything okay in here? Okay, yeah, you guys are just quiet. That's fine. Or maybe it froze, but whatever, we're moving on. Her right arm lay folded over her bosom. With her left, she pointed downward to a curiously fashioned vase. One small fairy foot, alone visible, barely touched the earth, and scarcely discernible in the brilliant atmosphere which seemed to encircle and enshrine her loveliness, floated a pair of the most delicately imagined wings. My glance fell from the painting to the figure of my friend, and the vigorous word of Chapman's Bussy d'Amboise quivered instinctively upon my lips. He is up, there, like a Roman statue. He will stand, till death hath made him marble. Oh! Oh no. Come, said he at length, turning toward the table of a richly enameled and massive silver, upon which there were goblets fantastically stained together with two large Etruscan vases, fashioned in the same extraordinary model as that in the foreground of the portrait, and filled with what I supposed to be Johannesburger. Come, he said abruptly, let us drink. It is early, but let us drink. It is indeed early, he continued, musingly as a cherub, with a heavy golden hammer that made the apartment ring with the first hour after sunrise. It is indeed early. Matters it. Let us drink. Let us pour out an offering to yon solemn sun, which these gaudy lamps and censers are so eager to subdue. Oh. Okay, Martin, it's good to see you guys are good, because I wasn't sure. Every now and then, like, my screen is going black, like Substack's freezing, so you know how we do. We just keep going. The lamps and censers are so eager to subdue, and having made me pledge him into a bumper, he swallowed in a rapid succession of several goblets of wine. To dream, he continued, resuming the tone of his desultory conversation. He held up the rich light of a censer, one of the magnificent vases. To dream has been the business of my life. I have therefore framed for myself, as you see, a bower of dreams. In the heart of Venice, could I have erected a better? You behold around you, is it true, a medley of architectural embellishments. The chastity of Ionia is offended by antediluvian devices, and the sphinxes of Egypt are outstretched upon carpets of gold. Yet the effect is incongruous with the timid alone. Properties of place, and especially of time, are the bugbears which terrify mankind from the contemplation of the magnificent. Once I was myself a decorist, but that sublimation of folly has palled upon my soul. All this is now the fitter for my purpose. Like these Aberasque censers, my spirit is writhing in fire, and the delirium of this scene is fashioning me for the wilder visions of that land of real dreams, whither I am now rapidly departing. He here paused abruptly, bent his head to his bosom, and seemed to listen to a sound which I could not hear. At length, erecting his frame, he looked upwards and ejaculated the lines of the bishop. I knew it when I saw erecting, I knew where we were going. At length, erecting his frame, he looked upwards and ejaculated the lines of the Bishop of Chichester. Stay for me there, I will not fail to meet thee in that hollow vale. In the next instant, confessing the power of the wine, he threw himself at length upon an ottoman. A quick step was now heard upon the staircase, and a loud knock at the door rapidly succeeded. I was hastening to anticipate a second disturbance, when a page of Mentoni's household burst into the room and faltered out in a voice choking with emotion the incoherent words. My mistress! My mistress! Poisoned! Poisoned! Oh, beautiful Aphrodite. Bewildered, I flew to the ottoman and endeavored to arouse the sleeper to a sense of the startling intelligence. But his limbs were rigid. His lips were livid. His lately beaming eyes were riveted in death. I staggered back towards the table. My hand fell upon a cracked and blackened goblet, and a consciousness of the entire and terrible truth flashed suddenly over my soul. Yeah, guys. Wow. That was a funny one. I mean, it was weird. I mean, at least I was scared there in the beginning. Like, you know, me having to read about potential child death. And then, I don't know. I'm still, like, slightly recovering from this whole light sensitivity situation. So I'm not even 100% sure exactly what happened. Because at first, like, I mean, I know what I just read. But it's just weird. Did you guys? This one is definitely going to come together at the very ending. WTF. Oh my. Poe is hilarious. Yeah. Okay, Wendy has no idea what happened either. Like, we'll have to, when I do the field report, maybe I'll do some research and see if the Poe Museum has something on there. Yes, Tara, girl, I feel like Poe took us on a wild goose chase. It was like all over the place. Because there was like the kid, and then I know, Tara, didn't you feel like I thought something weird was about to happen with the guy and the Marchesa. So he saved the kid, and then a few days later, he met up with the guy, and then what? Did he do something weird and kill the dude? I don't know. Yeah, it was definitely one that got me. We'll have to do some research into that one. Alright, let's get this marked off. The assignation. Alright. Let's see what kind of short ones we have. Yeah, Metzingerstein. That's like 6 pages. That's doable. Man of the Crowd. That's 6 pages and doable. When does he not take us on a wild goose chase? It's like he's just writing stuff to be a smug little bitch. I'm just waiting for him to go, and then it was all a fucking dream. Yeah, this is definitely... Yes, it felt like an acid trip. Don't worry, I will do my research, and we will figure out what the hell I just read. That is what we do here. But yeah, I'm gonna see if we got a relatively short one. I don't see any newcomers, so 12. Ooh, I just saw the words demon-like propensities, so I guess that's where we're going. I wasn't sure if this one was going to be too long, but I don't care because I'm about to read the words demon-like propensities. That is how we do here at book club. But, you know, in order to get to that, I'm going to have to suffer through some German. Always something. Metzen, Gerstein, Metzen, Gerstein, Metzen, Gerstein, Metzen, Gerstein. I just figure if I say it a whole bunch right now, hopefully, yeah, I'm going to have to say this word a bunch, so I need to make sure I've got it. Metzen, Gerstein. Okay. Pestis arum vivis, moraines tua mors aero. Martin Luther. What did Martin Luther say? Living, I was your plague. Dying, I shall be your death. Fuck yes. I am here for it. Clearly, there's a mood happening. But I love that. That's a good quote. So we know we're probably getting into some weird shit. Between that and, like I said, I saw the words demon-like propensities. It's happening at some point. I was just like flipping the pages and saw it. And it came to me. Oh, what is in my way? Alright. Ooh, yes. I already love these first few words. Let's get to it. Horror and fatality have been stalking abroad in all ages. How is that for a first sentence, Wendy? Why, then, give a date to this story I have to tell. Let it suffice to say that at the period of which I speak, there existed, in the interior of Hungary, a settled, although hidden belief in the doctrines of metempsychosis, of the doctrines themselves, that is, of their falsity or their probability, I say nothing. I assert, however, that much of our incredulity, such as Le Bruyere says of all our unhappiness, vient de ne pouvoir être seus. What do you say, Bruyere? Really? You ready for this? So, all of our unhappiness has to do with, it says, just cannot be alone. So, I mean, oh, greetings, Sacred Storylines. We've just started Metzen Gerstein. Not sure, like I said, literally first paragraph, but there's a lot going on already. Let's get you your first card. Or not your first card, but your card. Ooh, you've got Soothe. Quiet is a weapon. Use responsibly. Reload with breath. Alright. So, this guy, Le Bruyere, says of all our unhappiness to just be alone. But there are some points in the Hungarian superstition which were fast verging to absurdity. They, the Hungarians, differed very essentially from their Eastern authorities. For example, the soul, said the former. I give the words of an acute and intelligent Parisian. Ne demeure qu'une seule fois dans un corps sensible, au reste un cheval, un chien, un homme même n'est que la ressemblance peu tangible de ces animaux. I think of all the languages that he makes me do, French is my worst. Let's see what I just did. So the soul remains only once in a sensitive body. The rest, a horse, a dog. I thought that was the word dog. A horse, a dog, even a man, is that little tangible likeness of these animals. Okay. The families of Berlichtingzig, Zing, and Metzengerstein had been at variance for centuries. Ooh, we got family war. Love it. Never before were two houses so illustrious, mutually embittered by hostility so deadly. The origin of this enmity seems to be found in the words of an ancient prophecy. A lofty name shall have a fearful fall when, as the rider over his horse, the mortality of Metzengerstein shall triumph over the immortality of Berlichtingzig. And we're in Hungary? Are we talking vampires? To be sure, the words themselves had little or no meaning, but more trivial causes have given the rise, and that no long while ago, to consequences equally eventful. Besides, these states, which were contiguous, had long exercised a rival influence in the affairs of a busy government. Moreover, near neighbors are seldom friends, and the inhabitants of Castle Berlifitzing, okay. Castle Berlifitzing might look from their lofty buttresses into the very windows of the palace Metzengerstein. Least of all had the more than feudal magnificence thus discovered a tendency to allay the irritable feelings of the less ancient and less wealthy Berlifitzings. I cannot believe I did this to myself tonight. What wonder, then, that the words, however silly, of their prediction should have succeeded in setting and keeping at variance two families already predisposed to quarrel by every instigation of hereditary jealousy. The prophecy seemed to imply, if it implied anything, a final triumph on the part of the already more powerful house, and was of course remembered with the more bitter animosity of the weaker and less influential. Wilhelm Count Berlifitzing, I think we're going to call these the Burleys and the Metzies, or Metz, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep reading that name, though. That's for damn sure. Although loftily descended, was at the epoch of his narrative an infirm and doting old man, remarkable for nothing but an inordinate and inveterate personal antipathy to the family of his rival, and so passionate a love of horses and of hunting that neither bodily infirmity, great age, nor mental incapacity prevented his daily participation in the dangers of the chase. Okay. Frederick, Baron Metzengerstein, was, on the other hand, not yet of age. His father, the Minister G, died young. His mother, the Lady Mary, followed him quickly after. Frederick was, at that time, in his 15th year. In a city, 15 years are no long period. A child may still be a child in his third lustrum. Oh, oh, we've got the lustrums back, Martin. But except now we know 5-year periods. But in a wilderness, in so magnificent a wilderness as that old principality, 15 years have a far deeper meaning. For some peculiar circumstances attending the administration of his father, the young baron, at the decease of the former, entered immediately upon his vast possessions. Such estates were seldom held before by a nobleman of Hungary. His castles were without number. The chief in point of splendor and extent was the chateau Metzengerstein. The boundary line of his dominions was never clearly defined, but his principal park embraced a circuit of 50 miles. Okay, not small at all. Upon the succession of a proprietor so young, with a character so well known, to a fortune so unparalleled, little speculation was afloat in regard to his probable course of conduct. And indeed, for the space of 3 days, the behavior of the heir out-Heroded Herod, and fairly surpassed the expectations of his most enthusiastic admirers. Shameful debaucheries, flagrant treacheries, unheard of atrocities, gave his trembling vassals quickly to understand that no servile submission on their part, no punctilios of conscience of his own, were thenceforward to prove any security against the remorseless fangs of a petty Caligula. The remorseless fangs of a petty Caligula. We're keeping that. On the night of the 4th day, the stables of the castle Burley were discovered to be on fire, and the unanimous opinion of the neighborhood added the crime of the incendiary to the already hideous list of the baron's misdemeanors and enormities. But during the tumult occasioned by this occurrence, the young nobleman himself sat apparently buried in meditation in a vast and desolate upper apartment of the family palace of Metzengerstein. The rich, although faded tapestry hangings, which swung gloomily upon the walls, represented the shadowy and majestic forms of 1,000 illustrious ancestors. Here, rich ermined priests and potential dignitaries, pontifical dignitaries, familiarly seated with the autocrat and the sovereign, put a veto on the wishes of a temporal king, or restrained with the fiat of papal supremacy the rebellious scepter of the archenemy. There, the dark, tall statues of the princes Metzengerstein, their muscular war coursers plunging over the carcasses of fallen foes, startled the steadiest nerves with their vigorous expression. And here, again, the voluptuous and swan-like figures of the dames of days gone by, floated away in the mazes of an unreal dance to the strains of imaginary melody. But, as the baron listened, or affected to listen, to the gradually increasing uproar in the stables of Burley, or perhaps pondered upon some more decided act of audacity, his eyes became unwillingly riveted to the figure of an enormous and unnaturally colored house, represented in the tapestry as belonging to a Saracen, an ancestor of the family of his rival. The horse itself, in the foreground of the design, stood motionless and statue-like, while farther back, its discomfited rider perished by the dagger of a Metzengerstein. On Frederick's lip arose a fiendish expression as he became aware of the direction on which his glance had, without his consciousness, assumed. Yet he did not remove it. On the contrary, he could by no means account for the overwhelming anxiety which appeared falling like a pall upon his senses. It was with difficulty that he had reconciled his dreamy and incoherent feelings with the certainty of being awake. The longer he gazed, the more absorbing became the spell. The more impossible it did appear that he could ever withdraw his glance from the fascination of that tapestry. But the tumult, without becoming suddenly more violent, with a compulsory exertion he diverted his attention to the glare of ruddy light thrown full by flaming stables upon the windows of the apartment. The action, however, was but momentary. His gaze returned mechanically to the wall. To his extreme horror and astonishment, the head of the gigantic steed had, in the meantime, alerted its position. The neck of the animal, before arched, as if in compassion over the prostrate body of its lord, was now extended, at full length, in the direction of the Baron. The eyes, before invisible, now wore an energetic and human expression, while they gleamed with a fiery and unusual red, and the distended lips of the apparently enraged horse left in full view his gigantic and disgusting teeth. Stupefied with terror, the young nobleman tottered to the door. As he threw it open, a flash of red light, streaming far into the chamber, flung his shadow with a clear outline against the quivering tapestry, and he shuddered to perceive that shadow, as he staggered a while upon the threshold, assuming the exact position and precisely filling up the contour of the relentless and triumphant murderer of the Saracen Berlifitzing. To lighten the depression of his spirits, the Baron hurried into the open air. At the principal gate of the palace, which he encountered 3 equerries. With much difficulty, and at the imminent peril of their lives, they were restraining the convulsive plunges of a gigantic and fiery-colored horse. "Whose horse? Where did you get him?" demanded the youth, in a querulous and husky tone of voice, as he became instantly aware that the mysterious steed in the tapestried chamber was the very counterpart of the furious animal before his eyes. "He's your own property, sire," replied one of the equerries. "At least he is claimed by no other owner. We caught him flying, all smoking and foaming with rage, from the burning stables of Castle Berlifitzing, supposing him to have belonged to the old Count's stud of foreign horses. We led him back as an estray, but the grooms there disclaim any title to the creature, which is strange, since he bears evident marks of having made a narrow escape from the flames." The letters WVB are also branded very distinctly on his forehead, interrupted a second equerry. "I supposed them, of course, to be the initials of Wilhelm von Burley. But all at the castle are positive in denying any knowledge of the horse." "Extremely singular," said the young Baron, with a musing air, and apparently unconscious of the meaning of his words. "He is, as you say, a remarkable horse, a prodigious horse, although, as you very justly observe, of a suspicious and untraceable character. A suspicious and untraceable character. Let him be mine, however, he added after a pause. Perhaps a rider like Frederick of Metzengerstein may tame even the devil from the stables of Berlifitzing. You are mistaken, my lord. The horse, as I think we mentioned, is not from the stables of the Count. If such had been the case, we know our duty better than to bring him into the presence of a noble of your family. True, observed the Baron dryly, and at an instant a page of the bedchamber came from the palace with a heightened color and a precipitate step. He whispered into his master's ear an account of the sudden disappearance of a small portion of the tapestry in an apartment which he designated entering at the same time into particulars of a minute and circumstantial character, but from the low tone of voice in which these latter were communicated, nothing escaped to gratify the excited curiosity of the equerries. The young Frederick, during the conference, seemed agitated by a variety of emotions. He soon, however, recovered his composure, and an expression of determined malignancy settled upon his countenance, as he gave peremptory orders that a certain chamber should be immediately locked up and the key placed in his own possession. Have you heard of the unhappy death of the old hunter, Berlifitzing? Said one of his vassals to the Baron, as after departure of the page, the huge steed which that nobleman had adopted as his own, plunged and curveted, with redoubted fury, down the long avenue which extended from the chateau to the stables of Metzengerstein. No, said the Baron, turning abruptly toward the speaker. Dead, say you? It is indeed true, my lord, and to a noble of your name will be, I imagine, no unwelcome intelligence. A rapid smile shot over the countenance of the listener. How died he? In his rash exertions to rescue a favorite portion of his hunting stud. He has himself perished miserably in the flames. Indeed, ejaculated the Baron, as if slowly and deliberately impressed with the truth of some exciting idea. Indeed, repeated the vassal. Shocking, said the youth, calmly, and turned quietly into the chateau. From this date, a marked altercation took place in the outward demeanor of the dissolute young Baron Frederick von Metzengerstein. Indeed, his behavior disappointed every expectation, and proved little in accordance with the views of many a maneuvering mamma. While his habits and manner, still less formally, offered anything congenial with those of the neighboring aristocracy, he was never to be seen beyond the limits of his own domain, and, in this wide and social world, was utterly companionless. Unless, indeed, that unnatural, impetuous, and fiery-colored horse, which he henceforward continually bestrode, had any mysterious right to the title of his friend. Numerous invitations on part of the neighborhood for a long time, however, periodically came in. Will the Baron honor our festivals with his presence? Will the Baron join us in a hunting of the boar? Metzengerstein does not hunt. Metzengerstein will not attend. were the haughty and laconic answers. These repeated insults were not to be endured by an imperious nobility. Such invitations became less cordial, less frequent. In time they ceased altogether. The widow of the unfortunate Count Berlifitzing was even heard to express a hope that the Baron might be at home when he did not wish to be at home, since he disdained the company of his equals, and ride when he did not wish to ride, since he preferred the society of a horse. This, to be sure, was a very silly explosion of hereditary pique, and merely proved how singularly unmeaning our sayings are apt to become when we desire to be unusually energetic. The charitable nevertheless attributed the alteration in the conduct of the young nobleman to the natural sorrow of a son for the untimely loss of his parents immediately succeeding that bereavement. Some were, indeed, who suggested a too haughty idea of self-consequence and dignity. Others, again, among them may be mentioned to the family physician, did not hesitate in speaking of morbid melancholy and hereditary ill health, with dark hints of a more equivocal nature were current among the multitude. So he's got some bad genes. His family are bad eggs. Nobody likes them. They're depressed sickies. Indeed, the Baron's perverse attachment to his lately acquired changer, an attachment which seemed to attain new strength from every fresh example of the animal's ferocious and demon-like propensities. We finally got there, guys. So it is a horse, a potentially flaming horse, or a horse that just ran out of flames. It has ferocious demon-like propensities. At length became in the eyes of all reasonable men a hideous and unnatural fervor. In the glare of noon, at the dead hour of night, in sickness or in health, in calm or in tempest, the young Metzengerstein seemed riveted to the saddle of that colossal horse, whose intractable audacities so well accorded with his own spirit. There were circumstances, moreover, which, coupled with late events, gave an unearthly and portentous character to the mania of the rider, and to the capabilities of the steed. The space passed over in a single leap had been accurately measured, and was found to exceed, by an astounding difference, the wildest expectations of the most imaginative. The Baron, besides, had no particular name for the animal, although the rest in his collection were distinguished by characteristic appellations. His stable, too, was appointed at a distance from the rest, and with regard to grooming and other necessary offices. None but the owner in person had ventured to officiate or even to enter the enclosure of that particular stall. It was also to be observed that although 3 grooms who had caught the steed as he fled from the conflagration at Berlifitzing had succeeded in arresting his course by means of a chain, bridle, and noose, yet no one of the 3 could with any certainty affirm that he had, during that dangerous struggle... Oh, greetings, Tavis. We're reading a mouthful. It's Metzengerstein. And we have the Metzengersteins and the Berlifitzings. They're feuding. And we have a horse that has ferocious and demon-like propensities. Perfect water break. Let's get you your card. Ooh, you've got Soothe. Peace is an aesthetic, not a lifestyle. Apply gently, like sarcasm. You can apply it heavily too, but let's start small. Okay. So, yes, three grooms who had caught the steed as he fled from the conflagration at Berlifitzing had succeeded in arresting his course by means of a chain bridle and noose, yet no one of the three could with any certainty affirm that he had, during that dangerous struggle, or at any period thereafter, actually placed his hand upon the body of the beast. Instances of peculiar intelligence and demeanor of a noble and a high-spirited horse are not to be supposed capable of exciting unreasonable attention, especially among men who, daily trained to the labors of the chase, might appear well acquainted with the sagacity of a horse. But there were certain circumstances which intruded themselves perforce upon the most skeptical and phlegmatic. Is that what I think it is? Gross? Probably. Phlegmatic. And it is said that there were times when the animal caused the gaping crowd who stood around to recoil in horror from the deep and impressive meaning of his terrible stamp. Times when the young Metzengerstein turned pale and shrunk away from the rapid and searching expression of his earnest and human-looking eye. Among all the retinue of the Baron, however, none were found to doubt the ardor of that extraordinary affection which existed on the part of the young nobleman for the fiery qualities of his horse. At least, none but an insignificant and misshapen little page, whose deformities were in everybody's way, and whose opinions were of the least possible importance. He, if his ideas were worth mentioning at all, had the effrontery to assert that his master never vaulted into the saddle without an unaccountable and almost imperceptible shudder, and that, upon his return from every long continued and habitual ride, an expression of triumphant malignity distorted from every muscle in his countenance. One tempestuous night, Metzengerstein, awakening from heavy slumber, descended like a maniac from his chamber, and mounting in hot haste, bounded away into the mazes of the forest. An occurrence so common attracted no particular attention, but his return was looked for with intense anxiety on the part of his domestics, when, after some hours' absence, the stupendous and magnificent battlements of the Chateau Metzengerstein were discovered crackling and rocking to their very foundation, under the influence of a dense and livid mass of ungovernable fire. As the flames, when last seen, had already made so terrible a progress that all efforts to save any portion of the building were evidently futile, the astonished neighborhood stood idly around in silent and pathetic wonder. But a new and fearful object soon riveted the attention of the multitude, and proved how much more intense is the excitement wrought in the feelings of a crowd by the contemplation of human agony. than that brought about by the most appalling spectacles of inanimate matter. Up the long venue of aged oaks which led from the forest to the main entrance of Chateau Metzengerstein, a steed, bearing an unbonneted and undisordered rider, was seen leaping with an impetuosity which outstripped the very demon of the tempest. The career of the horseman was indisputably, on his own part, uncontrollable. The agony of his countenance, the convulsive struggle of his frame, gave evidence of superhuman exertion, but no sound, save a solitary shriek, escaped from his lacerated lips, which were bitten through and through in the intensity of terror. One instant, and the clattering of hooves resounded sharply and shrilly above the roaring of the flames and the shrieking of the winds. Another, and clearing at a single plunge of the gateway and the moat, the steed bounded far up the tottering staircases of the palace, and, with its rider, disappeared amid the whirlwind of chaotic fire. The fury of the tempest immediately died away, and a dead calm sullenly succeeded. A white flame still enveloped the building like a shroud, and steaming far away into the quiet atmosphere, shot forth a glare of preternatural light, while a cloud of smoke settled heavily over the battlements in the distinct colossal figure of a horse. Oh! Well, that was a fun one. That was a fun one. Metzengerstein. We've got family feuds. We've got haunted fire horses. Oh, I gotta mark that one off. Well, let's see, what time is it? 11:42. A little bit of a long one. Well, I'll mark that off later. I want to go ahead and make sure I get, our housekeeping done, because tomorrow, we have our self-help QVC and orientation, where Martin and I will be going through all kinds of fun stuff. We'll be pulling cards for everyone. We will be going through the website and looking at all the things that we have with the journals, the Begrudgingly Grateful cards that I pulled, all of the different downloadables, printables. We've got the Progress Under Protest collection. I've been really excited about that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got this hat. I have another one too. There's all kinds of stuff. It's going to be fun. It's going to be informational. And I hope to see citizens there tomorrow. And if not, there'll be the replay. And I think that's probably going to be the bigger value. I really want to have citizens know what it is what we're doing here. And self-help is real. It's a joke, but it's real. And we're doing real things here. And I'm excited. So yeah, tomorrow, 9 p.m., a little bit earlier than Begrudging Book Club, we will have that going on. And I guess I will catch you guys later. Just stay begrudging, stay grateful, and I'll see you tomorrow.